Anyone here today who's here for the very first time, hasn't attended any other classes? Anybody?
Well, any of your classes or GetSetup in general?
Well, GetSetup in general.
Oh,
Okay, I've enjoyed every class.
Okay, great. And so this is the first one of mine that you've attended?
Yes, I'm very interested in food and healthy eating, and the budget isn't that important. I just like anything that's food related. So
Okay.
thank you. I look forward to it.
Well, great. And I do have a number of other classes. By the way, my name is Deb Livingston, and I will be your guide for this class today. And I'm interested in healthy eating, have been for a long time for a lot of different reasons. Maybe in the very beginning, it started because my husband had a heart attack when he was 44 years old. And so that really started me on the path to researching a lot of information relative to eating healthy. And I've gotten interested in organic gardening and sustainable farming over the last several years. So that's just taken me deeper into the whole world of eating healthy and whole foods. So that's where I am, and that's what all of my classes are primarily based around. So I teach a class on healthy desserts. I teach one on heart healthy cooking, and then I do a series of classes on great meals in like around 30 minutes. And most of those are also using whole unprocessed foods. So I really try to select recipes that are good for us. So I hope that you'll find that this is the case today and you'll enjoy this class. Thank you so much for coming. So I am going to share my screen so that you can see what I see, and we'll get started. Okay, so can everybody see that beautiful looking salad on the presentation page there? Okay, fantastic. And we'll just start with this, a little bit of housekeeping. So you've been here before, you know some of the tenets of GetSetup. You know that we are a training organization for seniors, and it's one of those organizations that's evolved over the last year into something that's about learning, but also about socializing and creating connections. So I think that's probably one of the most enjoyable things about this work for me. I like meeting all of you. I love to learn from you. So I bring some things to the table that I share, but I also know that you bring a wealth of life experience and knowledge as well. So we have a relatively small class today. Sometimes we're having 50 people in a class and it gets a little difficult to hear from everybody verbally. I encourage you to unmute yourself and ask questions or share answers to questions or just ideas that you have about the subject. If you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself and talking, you can always put things in the chat box. And I would really welcome that. And I'll try to remember, I get wrapped up in my presentation, but I'll try to remember to stop and periodically look at that chat and see what you're saying in there. But if I forget, or if I don't catch your question, please let me know. Don't leave class without getting a question answered. We don't sell anything on this site, just want you to know. I'm going to be showing you a few things today. They're mostly things that I'm interested in that I thought you might be interested in too, but UPS won't drop a box off on my back porch after I mention these things. So none of that. We are recording the session. You know that you can request that recording at the end by going to help@getsetup.io. And you will want to also ask them if for some reason you don't get the email that I'm going to send out after the class, because I always send out an email. Please check if you don't get it, go to your junk email box, because sometimes your system will recognize it as a spam or junk. And if it's not in your regular email box, go to junk first. And you have to add the email address to your contact list in order for it to come into your inbox. But if you don't get it, ask for help, because I'm going to send you all these recipes and all these websites for recipes and for other information. And I want you to have that. I think that's about it. I think that you're all on mute right now. I would just encourage you that when you do unmute yourself to speak, that you just mute yourself again when you're finished speaking. That just keeps the background noise to a minimum. So my first question is to you today is what brought you? I'm very interested to know what I heard a little bit from Grisha, but thank you for that. And I'd like to hear from the rest of you. What is it that made you compelled to come today? Is there a specific issue, general interest? What is it?
I love to cook and I enjoy healthy eating. And I've heard your classes are really good from Norman.
Oh, how nice is that? Thank you. Thank you. I hope I live up to that.
You will. You will.
Okay. Anyone else like to share?
I took another one of your classes and really enjoyed it. So I knew I'd enjoy this one.
Well, Kim, thank you very much. Well, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. I thought I recognized you.
Yeah, thanks.
And I see Vera's here too. I recognize Vera and several others of you. Tatiana, you've been binging on my classes these last 2 days.
It's true.
Okay.
I love the classes.
Oh,
You are
fantastic.
very professional. You know what happened for the, let me tell you, you did not record the heart healthy cooking.
It didn't get
Yes,
recorded?
No, you forgot to record and I feel bad to tell you. But when I request recording, they said they don't have it.
Oh, I am so sorry
Seriously.
about that. Sometimes
I saw you didn't record it, but it's not my business to, to
oh,
tell.
well, certainly. I'm glad you told me that. So what happens normally is these record automatically, and occasionally something comes up where I'm on early and we're working on some technical things and I pause the recording and I might have, maybe I didn't remember to put it back on. I don't recall that, but I'll just go with that because I don't know what else it would have been. So I apologize, but
No,
Tatiana,
it's okay.
you have to come back again.
Definitely. I love it.
We're better
Thank you.
live anyway. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about healthy eating. I want to know what that means to you. And then tips for eating healthy for less. So just some ideas for how you can save a little bit of money as well. And then we'll talk specifically about some recipes for eating in season, because that's one way that we can eat healthy for less. And also some recipes for eating less meat, which is not only a healthy thing to do, but can also save some money. And lastly, I'll just have a slide. Maybe it'll just be included in the handout, a little bit on a tasty homemade treat that I have for you. So is there anything specifically that you are interested in? Well, we did talk about what brought you here, so maybe that's good. But along the way, if you have any other questions or thoughts about what's important to you, please speak up and let me know and ask questions. So here we go with healthy eating. What is healthy eating? And for me, it's these 4 things. Now, there may be some other things that you would add here, and I would welcome and invite you to share those with me. One is that it follows some dietary guidelines. Now, I want to be clear, guidelines are guidelines. So there is nothing that's perfect for all of us. All of us. We are all individuals. There are so many diets out there. There's probably a diet for every person. And those diets may work for some of us and not work for others. So our biologies are so different. And that's why it's hard to say, well, oh, there's one diet that everybody should follow, but there are dietary guidelines that can give us a start. And I'm not sure if you were aware that the government puts out a pretty substantial set of dietary guidelines every 5 years. And when I first started this class, they were just finishing up a 5-year set. And so this is a new set of guidelines that just came out this year. I'm going to send a link in the email so that you can access this yourself, but it really provides a great deal of information, and the format of the guidelines this year has changed dramatically. So I'm still digesting it, but it covers quite a lot. And if you take a look at where I am going here, Chapter 6 deals very specifically with older adults and talks about healthy dietary patterns what we're currently eating as a whole, you know, what are seniors eating, and any special considerations that we have at our age surrounding protein, vitamin B12, and beverages that we drink. So these are all things specific to our age group. And then what I'm going to just spend a moment taking a look at today is this table A13, daily, excuse me. These are daily nutritional goals for women who are pregnant. I didn't mean that. I think it's daily, or it's this is what's confusing to me. I even wrote this down because they've added, I wrote this down. So am I right about this? Let's see. Okay. Oh, yes, here we are. So I know this is a little bit small, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just want you to have a general sense of what some of the guidelines are for those of us who are in this age range of 51 plus. I think most of us are there. And I'm going to have to shrink this so I can get the whole thing down. But when it comes to consuming macronutrients, that is protein and carbohydrates and fats, we start with a sense of what our daily calorie levels need to be. And for women, it's 1,600 calories per day on average. For men, it's about 2,000 calories. And that means when we break down the macronutrients that we should be getting about 10 to 35% of our calories in protein, or about 46 grams of protein per day, or 56 if we're male. When it comes to carbohydrates, 45 to 65% of our calories should be in carbohydrates, but not just any carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates that are things like vegetables or whole grains, because they contain a lot of dietary fiber. If you're eating something that is a simple carbohydrate, I'm thinking here, things that contain table sugar, things that contain all-purpose white flour, we're consuming calories that have zero nutritional value. So we want to really minimize the number of carbohydrates in that category. But we do need, you can see, a relatively high number of carbohydrates in our diet each day. Again, they should come from vegetables and whole grains and fruits, whole fruits. And we can see here another important number is that we should get less than 10% of our daily calories in added sugars. So added sugars are anything that's added, obviously, to anything that we eat. So it would be that teaspoon of sugar that we put in our tea or our coffee, or it might be that can of soda that we drink. Those would all be considered added sugars compared to, say, the sugar that is in an orange. And that is a sugar that is inherent in that orange and is more slowly digested because of the fiber in the orange. So that makes it not a great sugar, but it makes it balanced by the fact that there's sugar in there helping to slow the digestion of that, and therefore slowing some of that sugar or that insulin response that we might have. So that's a good number to keep in mind. And then when it comes to fats, that's what total lipid means. I don't know why they don't say fat, because most of us really understand better what a fat is. Again, 20 to 35% of our calories should be in fat. And we've been kind of trained over the years that fat's not really a good thing for us, but in fact, it is really good for us. And we've got some general categories of fats. We've got trans fats, and those are the ones that have become, I'm going from bad to good, okay? So trans fats are absolutely go for zero there. So when you're out buying packaged goods, if you buy especially packaged baked goods or anything that lasts a long time on the shelf, that's baked. Look, turn that over and check out the nutritional profile on the back and look for whether there's any trans fats in that product. And if there is, I would just put that back on the shelf, because that's not a very nutritious kind of product anyway. I bet you there's other kinds of preservatives in there, things you just don't want. We don't want any trans fats. Saturated fats are fats that come from where? Where do we get most of our saturated fats from? Anybody want to take a stab?
Animals.
Animals. Yep, we get most of our saturated fat, but not all. So when we go eliminating saturated fats, we're looking for lean meats then. It doesn't mean we can't eat meat. It doesn't mean we can't have saturated fat. We just need to have less than 10% of our daily calories in saturated fat. So saturated fat can also be in things like avocado oil and coconut oil, even those aren't animals. However, avocado oil has a small amount of saturated fat. So avocado oil, because of its other fat, the other fats that it contains, makes it a very healthy fat. Olive oil and avocado oil both have small amounts of saturated, but big amounts of omega-3 fatty acids, which at the top end of the scale is the best kind of fat for us. And it's a fat that we don't get as regularly. We have to be intentional about getting omega-3s. And omega-6 is also a fat that is good for us, but we get plenty of it, and sometimes we tend to overdo it. We have to balance the 6 and the 3. Things like chicken have a lot of omega-6. So chicken is a meat that we've been encouraged to eat over the years, but it does have a lot of omega-6, and so we can get out of balance with omega-6.
Hey,
So
Deb,
yes,
can I ask about the extra virgin olive oil versus regular olive oil?
Mm-hmm.
Just the difference, and I know the EVOO is better, or at least that's what I've always heard, but does it make a difference?
Nutritionally, I think more, that's not an easy question to answer, because there's so much that goes along with this. Some years ago, there was studies put out about olive oil and whether you were actually getting olive oil when you were buying it, because they were blending it with other things and they weren't all 100% olive oil. So that's a factor. You've got to make sure you get a good oil. First cold pressed is a good characteristic to look for. Beyond that, you need to look for brands. And to tell you the truth, I'd have to redo that looking on brands. I'm not sure right now what the current information is on that. But California, the University of California, maybe at Berkeley, or no, it was a different one, but a California university recently did a study on, UC Davis did a study on avocado oil, and they found the same thing, that there's avocado oils that are billed as avocado oil that aren't really avocado oil, or they're rancid. So we've got to be careful about that. And I would say that the extra virgin olive oil versus the lighter olive oil, generally the EVOO is best, but if you're going to need a lighter oil for cooking, that other one is fine too, and still has omega-3 fatty acids. So yeah. I won't go into lots of detail here, but I want you to be aware that you can also find out what your guidelines are for various minerals and vitamins here. What I do want to point out is that vitamin D in your diet should be somewhere around 600 milligrams, but be aware that vitamin D is something you might want to do a little research on, especially with COVID, because it's been shown that people with low levels of vitamin D have been more susceptible to symptoms of COVID. Lots of them that have gotten really sick have been found to have low levels of vitamin D. You might consider supplementing. So those are some things. There are also tables in here that will show you food sources for this. For instance, vitamin D often we can get from foods like fatty fishes. So this would be a good resource for you to explore a little bit more. But that's all we're going to look at right now, because you really came for some recipes, I think. And so my second definition of healthy eating, I've already mentioned to you. It emphasizes fresh, whole food that is minimally processed. When I say minimally processed, when you go into the grocery store and you see a head of broccoli that's wrapped with cellophane and has a rubber band around it, that's minimally processed. Somebody had to pick that up and do something to package it. That's okay with me. And so are the flash frozen vegetables that you find in the frozen section. They're actually sometimes better than the ones you find in the produce section because they are picked and immediately frozen, and they don't lose the nutritional value that comes when enzymes tend to work on fresh product over time. So the produce in the produce aisle is a little bit older. I also think that buying high quality and or organic foods is very important. I am not a person who says that you have to buy everything organic. And I know that sometimes you feel like buying organic is an expensive way to go. It can be, but you can also find some ways to save money on organics. I'm going to send you this link, and it's to the environmental work groups Dirty Dozen list and Clean 15 list. Has anybody ever heard of that? You're going to want to get this if you, yeah, Kim, I see you raising your hand. You're going to want to get this. Yep, Grisha, you have as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you're ahead of the game here, and you can see these lists. You're going to have an option when you go onto this website to get a copy of it that's easily printable, but you can also print from something like this if you want to. But this shows the Dirty Dozen, the things that you should buy organic because they've been sprayed and they have pesticide that will be inherent in the product now, in the produce. So almost all of your fruits and some of your leafy greens are on this list. Celery is a big one. Potatoes, anything like that. This is a root crop. So potatoes tend to get a lot of insect pressure and a lot of spray. You want to look for these things in organic form if you can. And then when it comes to saving a little money on things that are not organic, it might make you feel better to know that you don't have to buy organic avocados or sweet corn or some of these other fruits. Peas are fine. Asparagus is all good. And, even broccoli. I was surprised about this because I get lots of cabbage loopers on my broccoli when I'm growing it. So I just assumed that this would be something, but apparently that pesticide doesn't really, it doesn't affect the broccoli head. So some pesticides work differently than others. And so we don't have to worry about it there, nor with mushrooms. So those are some things that you can save money on by purchasing them conventionally grown, and that's a little less expensive. And lastly, I think that what is a healthy eating is when we have great balance in things and very nutrient dense food. So everything that we pick, we're picking because it has all of these other it has all these nutrients. So when we pick a slice of white bread, we're making a bad choice. But when we're picking that whole grain, that whole wheat piece of bread, we're picking something that's got the nutrients from the germ and the bran of the grain that we are eating. And that's got all the nutritional value. So it also has the fiber. We're making good choices there. And I always like to say that having a colorful plate is what is also going to help you go in the right direction. When you have lots of colors on your plate, you're probably getting a lot of diversity in vitamins. That's just kind of a quick and easy tell. Can I stop right now and ask you to share any thoughts that you might have about healthy eating?
Well, I have a thought. It's not necessarily your exact question, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
Deb, Flash Frozen, is there a company that you are aware of that's organic, Flash Frozen veggies? I'm just curious.
A brand that I really like? I just really go for I'll go to Whole Foods and get those a lot of times. And one of the things I do is look on the back, or even buying organic can be tricky. I look on the back to see if I can find out where the product has actually been grown and processed. Because I've
Okay.
gone to grocery outlets where they have organic broccoli flash frozen, and it is from China. So you just want to look at the backs of the bags.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I
but
didn't think about that. Is there flash frozen? So is there several companies? Because I've never looked.
actually most things are all, that's how they're frozen. They're flash frozen.
They
So
are.
yeah, they're flash frozen. Which just means they're put in the freezer at a very cold temperature that
Right.
allows them to be frozen very quickly.
So it doesn't necessarily say flash frozen on.
No,
Oh,
thank you for that. That's good clarity. Thank you. Okay, so here are some tips, and you may have some tips too to share for eating healthy for less. So saving a few dollars here. First is shopping the perimeters. So by buying things that are minimally processed, like those fruits and vegetables, you're getting a product for less money than if it's been handled and processed and put in cans or even frozen. Now, frozen stuff, honestly, sometimes they put that on at such a great deal. They put it on sale that it's less expensive than even the fresh produce. But generally speaking, shopping the perimeters where your fresh meats are and your fresh baked goods are is a good idea. They're not only healthier, but they're less expensive. And then, as I said, we're going to look at some recipes for eating and buying what's in season, because oftentimes, how many of you have access to a farmer's market or to farm stands in your area? Or am I the only one who has that? Martha, do you?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I
So we're in Pennsylvania and we have lots of farmers in Pennsylvania. How about the rest of you? Any yes or no? Thumbs up? Yep. So lots of times when you can go to a farmer's market or a stand when things are in season, of course, you can get them at a lesser price. And the more we eat in season, the better off we are. And I think that the way the world's going right now, the more we can eat close to home, the better off we'll be, both in terms of nutrient value and in terms of price. And also eating what's in your pantry. So find a way to visit a site like this. I'm going to provide you with this listing of sites that allow you to go in. These are apps for finding recipes for ingredients you already have. So you have something in your pantry and you go to one of these sites like Big Oven, and you might say, well, I have some kidney beans in my pantry. And I can immediately get up a lot of recipes that give me ideas for recipes containing kidney beans. So it's a little bit of reverse engineering your cooking process. Instead of deciding what you want and then going to the grocery store, you're taking a look at what you have and then deciding what else you need, but you're using the things in your pantry so they don't expire. And that's all about planning ahead and then making a list of what you need. And I have this little tool. There's lots of electronic tools that you can use, but I'm going to share this attachment for you so that you can print this out if you want to. These are all sorts of forms for making a meal plan, a pantry inventory, a freezer inventory, and so on. So lots of tools to help you get organized. And that I will send to you. I think that planning is 9/10 of the issue, planning ahead. And then I would say with meat, and I love meat. I am not going to give up meat. Lots of folks are vegetarian or vegan. I respect that. I eat meat, but I do eat high quality meat. I eat organic meat. And I do tend to try to eat less meat by using it more as an ingredient in cooking as opposed to just a slab of meat on my plate. I incorporate it with vegetables and other things, and that's the way that I can eat less of it. That's notwithstanding a good filet. or a good strip steak every now and then. You've got to splurge if you really like that kind of thing. Shopping sales and stocking up. Of course, we know that that helps a lot with saving, and we can select things that are on sale that are healthy for us. And I just wanted to ask you, are you currently using, by show of hands, are you currently using an app on your phone from your grocery store that gives you coupons or anything like that? Some of you are. Yeah, Kim, you are. Yvonne, you do.
I am from Whole Foods is the
Oh.
only one.
Whole Foods.
I don't know how to do it. I never knew I can use it.
Okay, so there's ways, if you talk to the people at your grocery store, they will help you get set up for whatever app they have. And I want to show you this little tool that is kind of nice, a nice step before you get to that. This tool also lets you compare different stores, which is another thing that I suggest that you do, because different stores have different strengths. And Grisha says, oh, she shops at Whole Foods. And lots of us will say, that's whole paycheck. That costs a lot of money to shop at Whole Foods. And it can. So there's things I don't buy at Whole Foods because I know I can do a better job of getting the same thing at a grocery outlet or at another store. But I do like to go to Whole Foods for their produce, their organic produce, because oftentimes it's less expensive and it's better. It looks better. And I also like their meat sales. So there's ways I can get deals at Whole Foods. But this little tool lets me see what grocery stores are offering in my area. You remember when we would get the Sunday paper with all those flyers inside? This is the equivalent of that electronically. So would somebody just shout out what their zip code is? I'd like to enter it in here so I can give an example.
87111.
87111.
Right.
Okay. So here we go. These are all the circulars in your area. Now you can see this is for everything, not just groceries, but if you go over here to the left-hand side and click on groceries, you will get all the flyers for all the grocery stores in your area. So you have a Sprouts there and a Walmart, a Target, a Smith's. They sound familiar? A Trader
Yeah,
Very-
Sprouts. We like Sprouts.
Sprouts, I like Sprouts.
Okay, yeah, I like Sprouts too. I don't have one in my area, but I do like Sprouts. And then there's coupons over here that you can click on. So these are all coupons that you can clip and take to any number of stores. So a little bit of armchair shopping that you can do there. And my last little tip is to buy, question? Did somebody have a question? Okay. My last tip is to buy dried beans and use them instead of buying canned beans, because canned beans lose some nutritional value having gone under the pressure and process of canning. They're also high in sodium and they're also more expensive. So you can save money. You can get about, trying to remember the exact, let me see if I have that in my notes here. The exact number of beans. I don't have that on the tip of my tongue right now, but the equivalent to a pound, I think a pound of beans might be roughly $1.79, a pound of dry beans. That yields, when you make them yourself, about 12 half-cup servings. If you bought a can of beans, which would be maybe a little less than that, maybe $1, you'd get 3 half-cup servings. So just kind of as a sense of reference there, you can save a lot of money using your own beans. And if you soak them and then cook them, you can also freeze them. So doing a little extra effort and freezing excess beans is a good tip for saving some money. Anybody want to add any other things that they have for any other tips for saving some dollars here?
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
How is there a proper way to freeze beans, Deb?
Nope, just put them in a plastic freezer bag or in whatever. I tend to go with glass containers or something that's reusable. Just put them in a container and put them in the freezer.
But you don't need any liquid with them then,
No, you
whether cooked or canned.
No, if you cook them, soak them, cook them, and then you can drain them and freeze them.
Can you freeze just the canned beans without anything, or do you know?
You could. I don't know why you would.
Oh, well, because I live alone now, unfortunately, but I buy the low sodium at Sprouts.
Okay.
Some of them are no sodium, and for one, I can't eat a whole can, obviously.
Sure, you could certainly freeze those. You could freeze them the way they are. I always I rinse my beans anyway, so you could do either one.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
Uh,
They freeze
I-
nice.
I have a question. When you cook with beans, do you need to pre-cook them first and then put in your dish? Because yesterday you gave us a recipe and I wasn't sure if I can put the just the beans and cook together or already put the pre-cooked beans.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea for a lot of those recipes to have your beans already cooked, unless you're making them in a crock. If you're making the soup in a crock pot, your beans will soften over those hours, those many hours in the crock pot, but beans can take longer. So it just depends on how long you want to let your soup simmer. If you
Oh,
want
it's
to
a
have a
good idea.
quick turnaround on your soup, you want to have your beans already cooked.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you.
I have a
And
question about
somebody- Go ahead.
soaking beans. How long? I've never had success in soaking beans. They always end up crunchy still.
Yeah, well, they're supposed to be crunchy when you soak them. That's okay. What you're doing when you soak them is you're removing the phytates, which are like anti-nutrients. They are things that block you from absorbing some of the nutrients in the beans. They also kind of get them prepared for cooking so that they do soften faster, but you have to soak and then cook. So what I do is I put beans on to soak like last night, and then I might get up and cook them for whatever amount of time it takes for that particular bean so that they're done and ready to incorporate into a recipe. So it's two separate processes. If you're making a soup though, or anything, one of the things you do want to do is hang on to your bean cooking liquid, because you can incorporate that into your soup stock and into your recipe. It's very highly nutritious. Not your soaking water though. Okay, and looks like a good idea to date food items you put in the freezer. Way to go, Kay. Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And saving on freezer burn. Yeah, that helps.
What was that? Could you repeat that? I'm
Well,
sorry.
that's actually in the chat box about dating the things that you put in the freezer.
Oh, yes.
So that helps tremendously. And just labeling things. I tend to forget. I put things in the freezer and don't label them because I think I'm going to remember. How dumb is that? So I'm really getting
Always,
at labeling.
always. That's me.
I just think I'm going to remember, or that I'm going to use it soon enough that I won't forget. That doesn't happen. So here's a recipe idea for you, recipe ideas for eating in season. And I'm just going to take a moment. It's 3:10, so I'm trying to pace to get through all of this. What I want to point out to you here is that this was a summer meal that I made. Now I'm going to show you a couple of adaptations where you can use the same concept for something for winter. But this was summer, so in my garden, I had zucchini, and I had red peppers, and I had onions, and then the farmer across the street had corn, and I had tomatoes in my garden and basil in my garden. So all of this was very inexpensive. And of course, I could have gone to a farm stand and gotten it inexpensively as well. I went to the store. This recipe called for chicken breasts. I found chicken thighs, boneless chicken thighs on sale. So I don't feel like I need to be a purist when it comes to my recipe. I make adaptations. And so this chicken breast with gorgonzola salsa was delicious. And again, I'm using in-season tomatoes because the out-of-season tomatoes taste like bleh, not very good. And this was an easy recipe. I combined the tomato, onion, basil, a little bit of oil, and some salt. You're basically making a salsa, tomato salsa, and let it stand at room temperature because you're going to put the chicken on top of it. Now, in this case, they use that chicken breast. They hammered it down and made it flatter, but I just used the boneless thigh and that was fine. Sprinkle both sides with some salt and pepper, and then saute that in a pan. Simple, easy. Probably if I were to make it again, I might try rubbing it with a little oil and putting some herbs on it and letting it sit for 30 minutes. I think it would flavor the chicken a little bit more, but it was delicious anyway. And then at the end, this says to stir the gorgonzola cheese into the tomato mixture. Honestly, I just sprinkled it on top because if you have leftover salsa, you don't want that gorgonzola cheese making your salsa cloudy. So it's kind of nice to do that. So that was the chicken dish. And then this zucchini dish, I decided that I wanted to do something that didn't contain cheese. I always do zucchini dishes with cheese. And so just to do something a little lighter, I made a dressing here with parsley, shallots, basil, some capers, which were tasty. Anybody use capers?
I do.
Yeah, they have capers and Kalamata olives, I think, add a really nice punch to dishes. Oregano, olive oil, a little lemon juice, and then just steaming some zucchini and coating it or tossing it with this dressing. So you end up with a flavorful but very light kind of side dish for your meal. And then this corn salad. I love this. I can't wait for summer to make this again. This couldn't have been easier, and it was so tasty. I think because I really like the crunch of the corn, and that this was just so easy to bring together. I used light sour cream, just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, some seasonal or seasoned salt, whatever it is that you like, you can change it up. And then 3 cups of fresh corn kernels, not cooked, completely raw, a cup of pepper, red pepper, and finely chopped green onions. And you just mix it together and mix it ahead of time so that the flavors get to blend. And it's a super tasty salad, very healthy. It would be very colorful if it wouldn't be for that sour cream. It mutes the color a little bit. So that's the recipe. Now, when you
I'm sorry, I want to ask a question. I never heard about eating not cooked corn. I don't understand. Is it going to cook when you marinate, or you just don't need to worry about cooking corn?
You just don't have to worry about cooking it. If you have good sweet corn, and I would say fresh sweet corn that you're husking, you want to get it at the height of the season and get this, the kernels, really tasty corn. You don't need to cook it.
Oh, I never knew it. What is your suggestion? How to cook corn in a microwave? For how long? And
yeah, does anybody, so I don't cook corn in a microwave a lot. I'm kind of old fashioned that way. I just kind of throw it into some water and let it boil, but I have done it a few times. I can't honestly say. I guess I wrap it in, I'm trying to think how I do it. Does anybody else cook corn regularly in the microwave?
I have done it, and I've wrapped it in a damp paper towel. And damp paper towel. And I don't know, I think like 3 to 5 minutes, depends upon how many, but it's tasty. I mean, for me, I'm alone and it just saves time, and it's quick and adequate, but not the way I remember 35 or 40 years ago, cooking it on the stove and all that salt and butter.
Yeah.
But it's adequate.
A couple of minutes if you're just doing one ear is probably
right.
plenty.
Right.
So
That's my memory too. That's the way I've done it as well. Wrap it in a damp paper towel and just put it in there. And then I think it depends upon how well done you like your corn too. So you'll get a feel for what tastes good to you.
you can leave it in the husk also. If you just leave it in the husk and cook it 1 minute on one side, turn it over, cook it another minute the other side, usually that does it.
Okay, great,
Thank you.
great suggestions. Okay, you're all set, Tatiana.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, here are some ideas for some substitutions for those eating in season meals. If you were going to do the chicken dish, you might substitute that with roasted vegetables. So I have a recipe here for roasted vegetables. These would be roasted root vegetables in the wintertime. And you can do any kinds of roast vegetables you like. You can do a mixture, or you can do all one type. So roasted sweet potatoes, or you could mix it with onions and carrots and any kind of squash that you might like. And essentially what you're doing there is, get down to the bottom here, using a couple of tablespoons of oil, some fresh herbs, in this case, fresh oregano, and some sweet potatoes, parsnips, red onion, and ground pepper. That's what this recipe is all about. And you have your oven preheated to 425. And once you toss those vegetables, you can put them on a baking sheet. Sometimes you might want to line your baking sheet with parchment paper. I always think that does a good job. And you can roast those vegetables at 425. This says 50 minutes. Honestly, it depends on what you're cooking and how big your pieces are. I start checking them at around 25 minutes because you might find that they're done enough for you, and just use that gauge until you figure out your oven and your taste preferences. And they also rewarm really well. So I like to make a lot of extras and then reheat them later for other meals, or repurpose them into a creamed soup or into a tart, which I talk about in another one of my classes. I have a roasted vegetable tart that is awesome. And then this pomegranate salsa. How many of you have used pomegranates before? So
Deb, I just bought pomegranate molasses. I don't even know what to do with it, but I've seen a lot of recipes for it. Have you ever?
That would make a great dressing, I would think.
That's what they, yeah, and they put, I've seen it over vegetables and things. That's why I bought it.
Delicious. So pomegranates are interesting fruits. They do, when you cut them in half, all the seeds are embedded in a membrane, and you have to get those seeds out. Lots of times if you put them into a bowl of water, the seeds and the membrane will separate. The seeds fall to the bottom, the membrane comes to the top. So they're a little bit of work. You can buy them at some places in the winter season, where the seeds are already in a package for you, so you don't have to fool with the fruit. So you're using some pomegranates here with mandarin oranges, red pepper, jalapeno pepper, pickled jalapeno if you like it, and some cilantro and lime and a little cumin, and you're making that salsa. So that salsa can be served with your chicken instead of the tomato salsa, and you're eating something, again, that's in season. So thoughts or questions about any of those recipes? Think you might try any of them? Do any of them look appealing? Okay. I love pomegranate seeds, and they are really healthy for you. Very healthy, high in antioxidants.
Beautiful looking salad too, Deb.
Very beautiful, huh? Okay, so now I have some recipes for you for eating less meat. This one is, this is a taco salad that I made over the summer. So this is one of my salads. I'm not a small eater, as you can tell. It's a pretty big plate of salad. But I want to show you this idea for stretching your meat in ways that not only, lessen your meat calories if you're using that as a goal, but also kind of stretching your meat dollars. And I have this question to ask you. What is it that you like? Well, if you like tacos, what is it that you like about the taco meat? When you really think about eating a taco salad, what is it about the meat?
The seasoning.
Flavorful.
The flavor,
Want it
the seasoning. Yep. So can you taste the beef or the chicken? It's really about the seasoning, right? So the meat is a little bit irrelevant. You can use chicken, you can use beef, or you can use a combination of some other things. I also like that it's warm. So there's something about having the warm meat and the cold salad and the texture of it all. The meat texture is different from the crunch in the salad. So there's a lot of things about taco meat that have very little to do with the meat itself. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take this pound or half pound of hamburger or even chicken, and we're going to stretch it with things like onions and celery, carrots, mushrooms, or any combination of these things that you prefer. So you can do it 1-to-1, and you're adding your beef in here as well. And just saute it all together and add your seasoning mix. And now you've got 5 times as much taco meat, which you can then package up and put into the freezer with your dates on, so that you can pull it out for a nice taco salad anytime you want. And there's not much really there. This is not anything difficult. So the other suggestion is to add cabbage here if you like cabbage. And I talk about an egg roll in a bowl in one of my classes, which is a really healthy nutritional meal as well. Very tasty if you like Asian flavors. There's lots in this article, so you'll get the link to the recipe. And I believe that what she does here, I'm just looking, is she has her own homemade taco seasoning blend that you can check out as well. I know I've made my own. I buy bulk. Another way to save money, buy bulk spices and herbs and mix my own blends. So there is a recipe for that here, as well as the recipe for exactly how you do the taco meat, even though that's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And then I've got this recipe here. If you like chili, this is a very hearty, perfect for this time of year, meatless chili, lentil chili. And it can be served easily if you have vegan or vegetarian friends. It freezes very well. And you can get your dairy complement with some Greek yogurt or light sour cream, a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese. So this is a recipe that calls for, oh, get out of here. A little bit of course, we always start with onion and garlic for our chili, and diced tomatoes, some tomato paste. This recipe has black beans, kidney beans, and brown lentils in it. If you have green lentils, it'd be okay. If you had a different kind of bean that you like, that would be okay too. So use these as suggestions, and use the beans and the pulses that you like the most. And we're using traditional kinds of chili spices, chili powder, paprika, cumin, onion and garlic powder, some cayenne. And that's it. You can also, you can do this in a pan on the stove, or you can put it on in a crock pot. And I think it's so much better in the crock pot because you get lots of time for the chili flavors to meld together. And this is really a good, freezer food. I think I might have mentioned that. Anybody eat lentils?
I have a quick question about the brown lentil.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't taste good for me. Is it any way to cook in order to make it taste better?
Well, I think that when you cook them in with things like this chili, they'll taste much better. They take on the flavor of whatever it is that you're making. So if you put them in a dish where you have lots of different herbs and spices, you're going to make them taste better.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think eating lentils just on their own is very appealing.
Oh, it's yucky. Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm with you. Okay. And these are just some final little things that I believe I have a recipe for this. I don't have a recipe for these. This is just ideas. This is an egg salad. I won't go into the detail of the recipe, but it's essentially replacing, if you like egg salad, it's replacing the mayonnaise with avocado. It's delicious. And avocados are truly superfoods. They have a lot of good nutrient value, and they also contain a good bit of fiber. So it's a good substitute. And I would only say my word of caution with this egg salad is that you would want to make it and eat it fresh. Don't put it in the refrigerator. It gets off tasting. It's not as good. And then I have found this, what works for me that I really like as a pizza substitute, because I adore pizza and I feel guilty when I order it. But I get this, what is called lavash bread. And Grisha, if you shop at Whole Foods, you might find this brand of lavash bread, but it is, and I can't read the brand.
Oh, I'm so glad you suggested it. It looks like it's ROLF. Oh, no, Rolf Ups. Oh, no, roll. No, I'm
up.
sorry,
So it
roll
just
up.
says natural lavash, and I can't really read the brand, but what you're looking for here is that it's whole grain. Look at the
Oh,
back of
thank you.
back of the pack and make sure you've got good ingredients in there that you can read, and not a lot of preservatives. This brand does. And I just use it. I even crisp it up a little bit in the oven before I add my toppings. I use my own pizza sauce that I make, or sometimes I just buy a canned, even though the sodium's a little bit high. And I put the toppings on whatever I want and bake it. And it's a really nice, thin, crispy crust.
So
And
Deb, let me just ask you if I could. I'd love to try that. So
Mhm.
you take one of these sheets of roll up and you toast it first, because I like it very crispy. So do you put any oil or anything on it before
No,
you?
just put it in the oven and let it get a little bit brown.
So
I don't
like,
add the extra calories there. I just do
right.
that, and then I get it out. These are actually in 4 sections. I keep it whole. I don't tear apart the sections.
Oh, that's good to know. And I like 350 or 400.
Yeah, 350
Okay.
for, whatever you can watch what
Right.
you need from a browning standpoint.
Do you have to turn it over?
No.
Oh.
Just bake it like you would a pizza.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I love that. And my last thing, which I'll leave for you to explore on your own with the recipes that I send you, is for chia pudding. If you eat chia seeds, how many of you eat chia seeds, know about chia seeds? Those
Yeah, I
chia
do.
seeds are these little black seeds that are very high in omega-3 fatty acids. They're a fiber powerhouse. They're very good supplementation. They swell up when they're in liquid, and you want them to swell up because they'll move through your intestinal system better. You don't want those little hard seeds getting stuck in any particular pockets you might have in there. So what I'll send you here are these recipes for 32 chia seed pudding recipes. So it puts me in the mind of tapioca in that way, in the way that it swells up, and just different ideas for different kinds of puddings.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. So you might give those a try. Oops. And that brings us to the end of our class today. So I want to thank you all for coming, and also give you a moment if you have further questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
What is your
You teach,
what is
Deb?
your
Oh,
uh,
sorry.
That's
what is your plans for the future cooking classes? What do you want to teach, and how soon it will start? I'm new to this program. How long these classes list, and then what is the time for the new ones? How it works?
It really just works. It's sort of loose right now because these classes get offered until they burn themselves out. And then as fast as we guides can create classes, we can propose them. So there's not anything standard. I can tell you that I'm doing a soup series right now. So I just started a soup from scratch, and I'm doing one. I just realized I had way too much content. So I'm breaking it out into doing stocks and broths, and then doing different types of soups. So it'll be a series of soup classes. And from there, I have other ideas. I don't have them fully formed, so I hate to commit to that right now, but I do have great winter meals coming up in at 4 o'clock that I'll be doing. And I do this healthy desserts class, Heart Healthy, which you know about. And
Are
geez.
your classes on certain days, Deb, or not
Yeah,
necessarily?
yeah, they're usually in the afternoons, but
Okay.
they're on different days, and it depends on my schedule and when I'm available to offer
Yeah.
them. But yeah,
Okay.
but thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send you these links for everything. If you have any problem, please let us know, because I do want you to have these. It doesn't do much good to show you all of this if you can't recreate them. So it's important.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. And please, there's a button for providing feedback. Our bosses like to know what you think about this. So I appreciate hearing what you say to me. That's wonderful. I love the feedback, and they also like to hear too. What
Can
you
I
think.
make one comment, Deb, that
Yep.
might be helpful for others? I appreciate your using that larger pointer, because I've taken several classes and I cannot see. I have a minor visual problem, and I can't, takes me 10 minutes to find out. So I don't even know if you're aware, but the black and the larger, and I learned that in one of your classes, the Windows class,
Mhm.
to
Can
make
you
my
see this?
pointer larger.
Can you see this print okay in this color?
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
good. Yeah, I will pass that on. I'll put that note in. We have a way for the guides to share information, and I'll put that in there and let them know. Thank you for that feedback, Keisha. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
I hope
Great.
to see you in some other classes.
That's for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.